Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to go through a brief presentation that we have around the Southwest Ingersoll secondary plan area, and appreciate you coming out this afternoon to join us for this. My name is Justine Juncola, and I'm a partner with Dillon Consulting, and we've been retained by the county and the town to look at both a secondary plan and servicing strategy for lands that are considered the Southwest Ingersoll study area. With me today is Lindsay Noren to my right, and she's a planner with Dillon Consulting, and she'll be taking over part of the presentation as well. And so in terms of a brief agenda for today, we're going to provide a bit of an update on what's happened since we were last out to the community back in November, speaking with you all about this project. We'll then highlight the secondary plan principles, which were brought forward to the public back in November, and we've received excellent feedback and input on those, and are ready to present those to yourselves today. We're going to be covering a few of the draft secondary plan elements, and that will include the overall study area, the build-out land use plan, the public realm improvement plan and active transportation plan, the road improvement plan, preliminary municipal infrastructure concepts, as well as proposed drainage areas. And I'll quickly go over next steps, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers and guide you to additional information on the project. And in terms of some context on the project, Ingersoll has a vibrant history as a small farming community in the banks of the Thames River. It's centrally located in southwest Ontario, accessible by Highway 401 and via rail, and has a rich culture, quaint downtown, and good employment. And when we look at the growth for Oxford County, a significant portion of growth is intended for Ingersoll in the long term. Of the approximately 50,000 people and 20,000 jobs for Oxford County, about 15,000 people and 3,000 jobs are projected for Ingersoll to 2051. 2046, that one. After factoring out growth that can be accommodated within the existing settlement area, there is a need for additional both employment lands and community area. And as part of a boundary adjustment that was undertaken in January 2021, approximately 630 hectares of land were brought into Southwest Ingersoll. And that is the study area that we're looking at today. So you'll see on the screen the lands that make up Southwest Ingersoll, and we tend to talk about them as east of Ingersoll, south of Ingersoll, and west of Ingersoll, just to provide some context and recognizing that it is a pretty large area. And when I refer to that, this kind of will give you a little bit of a guidance as to which chunk of land we're referring to. In terms of the overall project, we were retained back in May to start this project, and the project began with a review of the background analysis and key issues and opportunities. We then prepared a vision and alternatives and came to the public in November to present those to you all, and to get feedback and input on those alternatives, on the preliminary growth concept. We also did a council presentation in January to provide a bit of an update on the project, and today we're here to look at getting some specific feedback on the secondary plan elements itself. And with that, I will pass along to Lindsay, my colleague, to take you through a few of those key slides.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here with us tonight. So the purpose of this open house is really to keep you in the loop with what's going on with the project, highlight some key opportunities and constraints that we've identified through this process, and obtain your valuable feedback on our principles, our preliminary growth concepts, and get a sense of your sense for the community as far as growth is concerned. So we really hope that this provides you with information on what we're doing, and your feedback informs us with what we're doing as well. So What is a secondary plan? That's a really good question. Let's start with the County of Oxford official plan first. So the Oxford official plan provides direction for missions and policies regarding managing growth, protecting resources, and promoting economic development throughout the town of Ingersoll. Underneath this are secondary plans, and secondary plans are more detailed and specific to certain areas within the town when it comes to land use planning, community design, transportation, and municipal infrastructure needs, all to accommodate long-term growth projections. The Southwest Ingersoll Secondary Plan specifically will be implemented through an official plan amendment, which will look to bring the study area into the town's current urban area to meet the 25-year land need to designate that land for urban growth. It will consider a variety of factors. So why is it needed? Well, based on the initial review of the town's remaining land supply, the growth forecasts and land needs assumptions contained in the county's Phase 1 comprehensive review study, which was done in 2020, it is estimated that the following additional land will be needed for growth in the 25-year planning period. This includes 40 developable hectares of residential land and 165 hectares dedicated to industrial land. So secondary planning in this process will be taken for the entire annexed lands, and the town's land need and any associated phasing of that development will continue to be further refined through this process to reflect the year-end 2022 land supply estimates. So the County of Oxford official plan, as of right, outlines the existing and planned future land uses for Southwest Ingersoll. As shown on this map here on the screen, you'll see that the east side and west side of Ingersoll include areas designated for future urban growth. Land brought in through the boundary adjustment will need to be identified through preferred land uses, and associated policies to guide growth in the study area will be done through this exercise. So now we're going to focus on the secondary plan principles that are guiding our work through this process. So firstly, I think we can all agree that being so close to Highway 401 presents a prime opportunity to foster a business environment that will help support Ingersoll become competitive locally, nationally, and internationally. Moving forward, we can all agree again that Ingersoll has a rich area of natural heritage resources. So it's important for us to identify and protect what's existing, while also providing opportunity to support a high quality of living for future residents of the area through enhanced trail networks, placemaking strategies, and climate resilience for future generations that may want to reside here. Moving forward, we also want to focus on sustainable economic and community growth long term. So this basically means we're creating an approach to manage growth that maximizes the use of existing and planned infrastructure. So we want to make sure that development is phased in a way that supports the logistical extension of these services. So this will focus on the implementation of green development solutions as well. Moving forward, we want to make sure that it's important we maintain and honor the rich cultural and archaeological history of Ingersoll. This town has a really vibrant history, and it's important for this exercise to leverage that existing history that we know and celebrate the future at the same time. So through this, the secondary plan will also seek to identify Indigenous interests and make sure we're protecting those as well. And lastly, we really want to enhance Ingersoll as a complete community. So this means promoting efficient use of land, compact mixed-use forms, and we also want to support livability and sustainability of the community. So long-term, this will look at housing needs for the community and identify opportunities for community services, commercial and recreational uses that promote a high quality of life while also supporting active lifestyles. At this point, I will throw it back to Justine to get into those more nitty-gritty secondary plan elements.
Thank you, Lindsay. So when we came to the public back in November, we did look at a preliminary growth concept and got a bunch of feedback and input on that. And so today what we'd like to do is talk about a number of elements of the draft secondary plan to again get your feedback and input on those components. So the first figure is just the secondary plan area limits. it would be the first figure of the secondary plan itself. The next component is a land use plan. And so this one is particularly important as it outlines the future land use designations that are being proposed within the study area. What you'll see on the slide is we've also identified a number of site-specific policies to go along with those designations. And site-specific policy number 1 is intended to pick up those lands that are within the potential buffer area of existing natural heritage features, to recognize the important relationship of those features and need to protect them for the long term, and to outline the requirements of a scoped environmental impact assessment to support any kind of development going forward, an environmental impact study, pardon me. And so those lands you'll see in kind of green hatched overlay on the map. What I'll do is I'll also look at, we'll go through kind of each of those areas one by one. So to the east of Ingersoll, this land has been identified as being an important area for community lands, for residential land moving forward, recognizing the proximity to the existing Ingersoll amenities and community area, the ability to access those existing facilities, and the long-term need for additional residential units in a variety of built forms to support broader housing choice across the community. We also heard from you that it's really important to look at different opportunities for single-level living and aging in place and providing a broader range of housing choice within the community. And so what we've proposed here is a portion of lands being designated low density, which is the lands identified in blue on that map, and then a portion of the lands being designated medium density residential, and those would show up in the pink color. One of the other core components that we heard from you is a need for additional passive recreational uses for Ingersoll to serve the existing and future residents. And so we've identified a open space that's the green area closest to Highway 401 to provide both new amenity space for the new residents of this area and the existing residents. South of Highway 401, these lands have been identified primarily as prime industrial. That would be a new designation in the County of Oxford official plan. And I'll go through the details of that designation in a moment. But the other piece that you'll see here is along the two arterial roads, Plain and Culloden, you'll see some lands being identified for service commercial. And those are identified in yellow or kind of gold on the screen. And then the west side of Ingersoll, the existing CAMI plant has been identified there as industrial, and that's what the current designation for that land is. And we've carried that forward, with the remaining land south of the rail corridor being proposed for prime industrial uses. North of the rail corridor, we've identified opportunity for, in the long term, for residential uses, as well as another potential for open space, and you'll see that again in the green area, intended to accommodate passive recreational uses in the long term. There's also a site-specific policy identified here, recognizing that the current policy framework requires a need to designate land for 25 years, and that these lands could potentially be beyond that time horizon, so they would need a confirmation of land need in order to proceed. So I'll really briefly go through some of those different land use designations that I just mentioned. The low-density residential designation, this is something in the current town of Ingersoll official plan through Oxford's official plan. And it's intended to primarily support development or planned for a variety of low-rise, low-density housing forms, including single-detached, semi-detached, duplexes, converted dwellings, quadruplexes, townhouses, and low-density cluster developments. In addition to the permitted uses within the County of Oxford OP currently, we've also proposed that multiple unit dwellings, street-oriented multiples, and additional dwelling units would be permitted, recognizing again that interest in providing broader variety of built form. While the maximum net residential density that is in the current official plan has been proposed to be maintained in this area, there has been the current draft that we have in front of you proposes to increase the minimum density within the low density residential designation in this area. The medium density residential designation, again, is quite similar to what the County of Oxford official plan has currently across the town of Ingersoll. The main differences here that we're proposing would be that single detached dwellings would not be permitted within that medium density residential designation, and that additional dwelling units would be permitted, that they wouldn't be required to have separate criteria being met. So the prime industrial designation, this would be a brand new designation for the town of Ingersoll. And what we're looking at here is the desire to expand industrial land supply and attract modern industries and enhancing the range of employment opportunities locally. There is a intent to discourage land extensive industrial uses, and with that proposing a minimum lot coverage of 10%. There's also a range of permitted uses that are being proposed, including a range of industrial uses, research and development, information technology, and a number of accessory uses. The service commercial designation is primarily the same as it exists currently in the County of Oxford official plan, and would support uses catered to vehicle traffic, single-purpose shopping trips, where customers are typically generated from passing traffic in a wide range market area. So that would be kind of service malls. So one of the other core elements of the secondary plan is to look at the public realm improvement plan and active transportation methods that can be supported throughout the study area. And so as part of this exercise, we looked at introducing a new multi-use trail connection, enhancing the existing trails and cycling lanes across the community, and looking for where those can be connected throughout the study area. So what you'll see to the east of Ingersoll is an extension of the bike lane along Clark to go through the study area and then connect with the new open space designation to the south. We've also looked at a new multi-use trail connection going south of Highway 401 through the prime industrial lands to provide access for cycling and walking and hiking. And then looking at a trail connection, the current trail along the Thames River connecting to Hamilton Street, Hamilton Road, and through the residential area, the proposed residential area to the west side of Ingersoll. And the public realm improvement plan at this level, being at a secondary plan, is conceptual. So where a feature is not within an existing right-of-way, it's demonstrated for conceptual purposes, and the exact location would be confirmed through the subsequent development process. So there's a series of gateways identified. Gateways are intended to provide a sense of place and highlight the identity of a location, and really highlight and commemorate the identity of Ingersoll. And so we've identified two major gateway locations at Plank Line and Highway 401, as well as Culloden Line and Highway 401. And then three minor gateway locations, one at Thomas Road and Wallace Line in the industrial area, one at Hamilton Road between the proposed rail south of Oakwood Street, and one at Clark Road, and the proposed new roadway of Harris Street. There's a number of streetscape improvements that would go along with this plan, and those were identified primarily on both the existing streets as well as the new proposed roads through the area. And then there's also a proposed active transportation network. And I think I highlighted most of these already. Just going to see. Yeah, I think I've highlighted all of those already, actually. So I will continue on to the transportation plan. So the transportation plan, recognizing the long-term use of this area, there's a number of roadway improvements that would be needed to support that growth. And so what we've identified is a need for utilizing the existing hierarchy of road structure within the county, where there's the provincial highway, county road being arterial roads, county roads being collector roads, and then local roads, a variety of improvements across the area. And I'll go into those in a little more detail. So there is an upgrade of Curry Road and Union Road to the south of Highway 401, and these are intended to provide access to those prime industrial lands to the south of Highway 401. There's also a conceptual local road layout being proposed here, and similar to the public realm improvement plan, these are very conceptual at this time, and where they're not within an existing right-of-way, their exact location would be confirmed through subsequent development approvals processes. We've also identified a need to upgrade Wallace Line as a collector road to provide access to the proposed industrial and prime industrial land to the west of Ingersoll. And lastly, a new north-south collector road to connect Clark to the new open space to the east of Ingersoll. And as mentioned, there's a series of local roads that would provide local access to go along with those plans. And you can see those conceptually on this slide. Another core component of the study is to look at the municipal infrastructure requirements that go along with growth. And so at this point, we've got some fairly high-level conceptual layouts that I'd like to go through with you. Next component of the study is really to take that analysis a little further based on the feedback from today and look at the cost of infrastructure as well as the financial impact and be able to provide a little more detail on that piece, as that is a next step on the study. In terms of the conceptual water mains, the overall approach would be to utilize the transportation right-of-ways, either existing or future, and to connect a series of proposed water mains to service the areas. What you'll see is that there is a need to loop that servicing, and to provide access south of the 401 requires a series of new connections that are not there currently south of Highway 401. And so in this figure, we've proposed 3 connections south of 401 and are continuing to work with MTO to work through the approvals process for those. In terms of the conceptual sanitary infrastructure, there's again a series of gravity and trunk and force mains that have been identified in this from a conceptual perspective. What you'll see is lands to the east of Ingersoll, based on the grading of that area and the current system, primarily can be serviced by gravity. Those lands to the south of the 401 will require a pump station, and that is that kind of purple dot you'll see kind of midway south of Highway 401, as well as one just west of Culloden to provide access for that individual landowner. And then to the west of Ingersoll, there's a need to provide 2 pump stations in order to service the industrial land and then the residential land to the north. The last piece that I wanted to highlight today was around the stormwater management components. The existing drainage areas and municipal drains were reviewed and modeling was conducted, and we looked at how to provide storm conveyances generally following the location of proposed streets within the study area, as shown in the figure. These sewers were generally following the road grading to the low point within each catchment area and then discharged to the associated stormwater management pond. And the anticipated footprint of the stormwater management is really estimated at this point, and again, the further analysis may modify those footprints. So I do really appreciate you all coming out tonight, and we will be here to answer any questions or comments that you may have. Just in terms of next steps, we are going to be here till 7 p.m. this evening, and looking forward to talking with you all. Based on the feedback from this evening, there's also going to be a comment form provided online should you want to provide feedback at home. This event is being live streamed and will be recorded and available at your leisure. And we will be following this. We're asking for feedback within a 2-week time frame, if you're able to, as the next phase of the process will be to release the draft secondary plan, and we want to be able to capture all of your feedback and input as part of that. We are also working on the infrastructure analysis and physical impact analysis, and we'll be establishing some of the requirements to support the subsequent development approvals process. If you can try to provide your feedback by May 3rd, that is the 2-week timeline, if at all possible, and the project website is provided there on the screen. And again, I just want you to thank you for taking the time to come out this evening and appreciate your valuable input.
Thanks very much, Justine. Just for his information, Ron Verstegen is a senior planner with Oxford County. Heather St. Clair is a senior planner with Oxford County. Michael Graves, I'm not sure if he's sticking around too long, but Michael's our Chief Administrative Officer. I'm Curtis Time, the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism for the town. Justine and Lindsay will be around to answer any of your questions. Feel free to name them about, look at the